A Republican man walked into a hotel lobby late one Friday evening, his MAGA hat perched confidently atop his head like a banner. The embroidered slogan gleamed under the soft lights of the reception desk, an unmissable statement in a world full of quiet whispers. He approached the counter with an air of casual assurance, luggage rolling behind him in muted rhythm, unaware that the events about to unfold would turn an ordinary check-in into an extraordinary confrontation. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Behind the counter stood a hotel receptionist, a young man with sharp eyes and a posture that suggested both professionalism and a certain self-importance. He eyed the hat immediately, his gaze lingering just long enough to betray a mixture of disapproval and discomfort. Without missing a beat, the man in the MAGA hat smiled and greeted him, providing a reservation confirmation number in an even friendly tone. The receptionist's hand hesitated over the keyboard, his expression hardening as if he'd been handed an ultimatum rather than a routine booking detail. "I'm sorry," the receptionist began, the words slipping out with all the grace of a speeding train meeting an immovable object. "We can't check you in while you're wearing that hat." For a moment, the lobby was suspended in a peculiar silence, the kind of silence that stretches and bends under the weight of unspoken tension. The Republican man tilted his head slightly, as though weighing the situation, his smile faltering but not vanishing entirely. "I beg your pardon," he said, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of incredulity. The receptionist straightened up, emboldened by his initial declaration. "It's against our policy to allow political statements that might make other guests uncomfortable," he explained, each word delivered with the precision of someone reciting a practiced line. "You'll have to remove the hat, or I won't be able to check you in." The man's brows knit together, not in anger, but in a sort of bemused disbelief. He looked around the lobby, as though searching for cameras or hidden pranksters, but there was nothing to suggest this was anything other than genuine. He glanced back at the receptionist and shrugged with a good-natured chuckle. "Well, that's a first," he muttered, "but no thanks. I think I'll keep it on." The refusal set off a chain reaction. The receptionist's demeanor shifted from firm to defensive, his voice growing sharper as he repeated the so-called policy and the consequences of not complying. Meanwhile, the Republican man's stance remained unflinching, his smile slowly morphing into a neutral mask of politeness. The luggage at his side seemed to echo his stance, stationary, unyielding. At this point, the other guests in the lobby were beginning to take notice. A family seated nearby exchanged curious glances, while a couple waiting for an elevator paused mid-conversation to observe the unfolding drama. The receptionist, now visibly flustered, glanced nervously at his computer screen as if searching for backup in the form of an email or memo to justify his actions. None was forthcoming. The Republican man leaned on the counter, his tone still conversational, as if discussing the weather rather than his forced exclusion. "You're telling me that my hat, this little piece of fabric, is the problem here. Not my behavior, not my reservation, just this." The receptionist nodded curtly. "It's non-negotiable." That was when the man revealed the trump card he'd been holding all along, though he did so without flourish or fanfare. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a slim leather wallet, and produced a business card. Sliding it across the counter with deliberate slowness, he said, "You might want to check who you're talking to before you make this kind of call." The receptionist's hand hovered over the card like a hummingbird unsure whether to land. When he finally picked it up and read the name and title printed there, his face drained of color. His eyes darted from the card to the man and back again, as though hoping that repetition would somehow alter reality. But reality stood before him, wearing a MAGA hat and a look of quiet satisfaction. The Republican man, as it turned out, owned the hotel. The realization hit the receptionist like a thunderclap. His mouth opened and closed wordlessly, the earlier confidence evaporating like morning mist. The watching guests, sensing the shift in dynamics, leaned in slightly, their curiosity palpable. The family exchanged murmurs, and the couple by the elevator abandoned all pretense of subtlety, openly gawking at the scene. The Republican man, however, didn't seize the moment for triumph or gloating. He simply straightened up, adjusted his hat, and said, "Now, about that reservation." The receptionist fumbled for words, eventually managing a stammered apology that sounded more like an afterthought than a genuine attempt at reconciliation. His fingers flew over the keyboard, the earlier policy conveniently forgotten as he hastily completed the check-in process. The owner didn't rush him or offer commentary, though the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth suggested he found the spectacle mildly amusing. Once the formalities were concluded, the Republican man took his room key and tipped an imaginary hat. "Thanks for the hospitality," he said, the irony in his tone so subtle it could have been missed by anyone not paying attention. With that, he rolled his luggage toward the elevator, leaving the receptionist to stew in a cocktail of embarrassment and regret. The incident raised questions about the intersection of personal expression, corporate policy, and the assumptions we make about others based on appearance. Here was a man who could have escalated the situation, wielding his authority like a hammer. Instead, he let the moment unfold, allowing the receptionist's actions to speak for themselves. It was a lesson, perhaps, in the power of restraint and the quiet satisfaction of letting the truth reveal itself. The humor in the situation didn't lie in the confrontation itself, but in the small human details. The receptionist's initial bravado, the dramatic pause before reading the business card, the way he suddenly became engrossed in his computer screen, as though it held the secrets of the universe. It was a tableau of ordinary people caught in an extraordinary moment. Even the Republican man's decision to keep wearing the hat, knowing full well it would provoke a reaction, added a layer of irony that didn't go unnoticed by those who witnessed the scene. For the onlookers, the event was both an amusing anecdote and a thought-provoking spectacle. The family in the lobby likely recounted the story over dinner, their children wide-eyed with the thrill of having witnessed grown-up drama. The couple by the elevator might have chuckled about it later, remarking on the unpredictability of human behavior. Even the receptionist, though undoubtedly mortified, would probably look back on the incident as a pivotal moment in his career, a cautionary tale about the perils of making snap judgments. The event also underscored the unpredictable ways in which power dynamics can shift. The receptionist began the encounter in a position of authority, armed with a supposed policy and the weight of institutional backing. By the end, that authority had crumbled, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. The Republican man, meanwhile, navigated the situation with a mix of patience and quiet confidence, knowing all along that the outcome was in his favor. The story served as a microcosm of larger societal debates about expression, identity, and the assumptions we carry. It was a moment that could have spiraled into conflict, but instead became a quietly humorous lesson in humility and the importance of seeing beyond appearances. For the Republican man, it was likely just another day in his life, albeit one with a particularly memorable twist. For everyone else, it was a reminder that sometimes the person you underestimate is the one who owns the place. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.